with Professor Brackett.
Upravo sam razgovarao sa profesorom Bracketom.
He told me within a couple of weeks he's going to be teaching methodology of interpreting scripture.
I on mi reče da će za nekoliko tjedana predavati metodologiju proučavanja Biblije.
If you've never taken such a class,
kada niste uzeli takav predmet.
Now I don't even know if he's going to allow everybody to be there who wants to be there.
Čak I ne znam ako će svima dopustiti da budu tamo da kivaju.
But if you've never taken a class like that,
ali ako nikada prije niste imali takav predmet,
that is super important.
On je izuzetno važan.
And the mistake that people make even between these two is often hermeneutical. How do you interpret the Bible?
I pogreška između ovih dviju strana, odnosno ove desne strane je kako tumačiš Sveto pismo.
And like I just said earlier, how do you interpret a story or narrative is a little bit tricky and it's helpful. Sorry.
Kao što sam rekao prije, kako tumačiš naraciju, pripovijest, ponekad zna biti škakljivo.
We don't just see something in the text and say they did it, I should do it, because we know you don't just do everything. Some of it's bad.
Dakle, nije samo ok, oni su to napravili, oni su to radili, pa ja ću to raditi, jer su i oni to radili. To nije dobro i može završiti, imati pogubne posljedice.
And neither do we just say the good guys did good things, so we should do all the good things the good guys did.
Niti ćemo reći, dobri dečki su činili dobre stvari i mi smo dobri dečki, moramo činiti dobre stvari.
We need to see the author's intent, why he included the stories there.
Pronaći autorovu namjeru, svrhu, zašto je uključio specifičnu priču ili pripovijest u svoje evanđelje ili dječništvo.
And what was the point he was making about including those details in the
stories? I što time želi postići, što je poanta, zašto imamo te detalje koje imamo u toj specifičnoj pripovijesti.
So, that is maybe something you could think about, or should think about.
To je nešto o čemu možete, ali biste I morali razmišljati.
If you have the time,
ako imate vremena,
and have never had such a course, I would definitely, if it was me, I would be there.
I nikada niste imali takav predmet, da sam ja na vašem mjestu, ja bih bio tamo.
And it affects everything that we interpret and even how we live.
Jer će utjecati na sve što ćete tumačiti, ali istovremeno I na način na koji živite to što vjerujete.
Chris didn't tell me to say that.
Chris mi nije rekao tako.
I just believe it.
Samo mi vjeruje.
So this was our second point.
Ovo je naša druga točka toga.
Was this pretty clear?
Je li to bilo dosta jasno?
Number 3.
Broj 3.
The purpose of miracles were to be signs.
Svrha čudesa je bila da budu znakovi
tied to Jesus as the Messiah,
koji su usko vezani sa Isusom kao Mesijom.
And I wrote down a couple verses.
I zapisao sam nekoliko stihova.
Such as Matthew 11, 2 through 5, which we looked at.
Kao Matej 11, 2 do 5.
Matthew 11, 2 through 5.
Matej 11, 2 do 5.
Or John 20,
Ivan 20.
verses 30 and 31.
30 do 31.
We looked at that earlier.
I to smo pogledali rano.
That the miracles, it says at the end of the Gospel of John,
da čudesa, znakovi koje Isus učinio I zapisano su u evanđelju po Ivanu,
were a sign or an indicator, a pointer,
su znakovi, pokazatelji, indikatori,
that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God.
Da Isus jest Mesija, Sin Božji.
And we should put our faith in Him.
I da bismo trebali uzvjerovati u njega.
And have eternal life.
I imat ćemo život vječni. Vjerniči.
To baš je ovaj Židov u knjizi Život Mesije objašnjava. Čak I farizeji su znali koja su čudesa, mesijanska čudesa.
That's the very thing that Kristov is explaining in his book. And he talks about what miracles were specifically for Messiah.
John 11, we talked about it today.
Even in
And I continue, the same point 3, miracles were signs pointing to Jesus, are tied to Jesus as the Messiah, and, we already said that, and the apostles being apostles. So they are a sign of the apostles.
Dakle, sljedeći dio toga je da pokaže da su apostoli uistinu apostoli. Dakle, čudesa su vezana uz Isusa na način da pokažu da je on Mesija i da su apostoli doista apostoli.
The second part is also pretty important.
Jer taj drugi dio je itekako važan.
2 Corinthians 12:12
2. Korinčanima 12:12
and Ephesians 2:20 are important verses showing that miracles were signs of being an apostle.
Koji nam pokazuju da su čudesa bila znakovje da su apostoli. 2. Korinčanima 12:12, Efežanima 2:12.
So let's look at the first one.
Pogledajmo prvo 2. Korinčanima 12:12.
The signs of a true apostle were performed among you with all perseverance by signs, wonders, and miracles.
Doista znamenja apostola ostvarena su među vama sa svom postojanošću, sa znacima i čudesima i silnim djelima.
I underlined this. I don't know if you like to highlight your Bible or not. I don't know if you can have a paper Bible. But I highlight them in my paper Bible and electronic Bible, digital Bible.
Dakle, ja sam si to podcrtao. Ne znam ako vi podcrtavate ili ne, pa čak ne znam ako imate kopiju Biblije ili koristite digitalno, ali ja sam usvojio ovaj kopiju.
This one's worth underlining.
Ovo je jako dobro podcrtao.
Because it says,
jer kaže,
true apostles had a sign, an indicator, a pointer to being a true apostle.
Pravi apostoli imali pokazatelje, znamenja, indikatore koji su pokazivali da su oni doista apostoli.
What were those signs?
Što su bili ti znakovi?
Paul says they were performed among you.
Kaže da su oni bili učinjeni među vama.
With even perseverance. They worked at it.
Sa svom postojanošću.
And what is the sign of an apostle? Is wonders and miracles.
A pokazatelji apostola su znaci i čudesa.
Remember our 4 terms?
Sjećate se onih 4 grčkih ili hrvatskih riječi?
These are 2 of them.
Tu su 2.
And sign is the third one.
A znak je treća. Znači prve 2 imamo i treću.
So, not everyone has the sign or everyone would be an apostle.
Nisu svi imali te znakove, pokazatelji, niti su svi bili apostoli.
But to be an apostle, you knew somebody was an apostle by them doing wonders and miracles.
Ali znali ste da je netko apostol ako čini čudesa i znakove.
So this is fairly unique to the apostles.
Ovo je nešto što je specifično jedinstveno apostolima.
It's been rare, but in life I've had a few discussions with people where they believe that everybody, all Christians, should be able to do miracles if God gave you that gift.
Iako je bilo rijetko, ali imao sam nekoliko razgovora sa nekoliko ljudi koji vjeruju da svi kršćani moraju imati taj dar.
And they point to 1 Corinthians 12 where it lists the spiritual gifts and it includes miracles.
I idu u 1. Korinčanima 12 i na kraju njihovog poimanja, što kaže 1. Korinčanima 12, zaključuje da svi možemo činiti čudesa.
But that was for the early part of the church.
Ali to je za rani dio prve crkve.
Because miracles were characteristic of apostles.
Jer su
According to
čudesa
this verse.
bila usko vezana sa službom apostola.
It's their sign.
To je njihov pokazatelj.
Points to them being apostles.
Dakle, to ukazuje na to da su apostoli doista apostoli.
Or Jesus being the Messiah.
Ili na Isusa koji je bio Mesija.
Matthew 11, 2 and 5.
5.
That's my first premise or argument.
Dakle, to je moj prvi dio premise argumenta.
Miracles are tied to apostles and Jesus.
Čudesa su vezana uz Isusa i apostola.
And Ephesians 2:20
I Efežanima 2:20
says that the apostles
kaže da su apostoli
and prophets, New Testament prophets,
novozavetni proroci,
are the foundation of the church.
temelj crkve.
This is my second premise that I argued with or tried to share
To je
with
drugi argument koji imam sa ljudima koji vjeruju da svi imamo.
who believe that miracle gifts were continuing to today.
Dakle, da su ti darovi činjenja čudesa nastavili se koristiti danas.
Ephesians 2:20 says,
Efežanima 2:20 kaže
the church is built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, and Jesus is the cornerstone.
da je crkva građena na temelju apostola i proroka, a ugaonik je sam Isus Krist.
When you build a house or a church,
Kada gradiš kuću, crkvu,
foundation always goes at the bottom.
temelj uvijek ide na dno.
You don't rebuild the foundation or continue it on the 20th floor or the 21st floor.
Ne gradiš temelje na nekom drugom temelju ili dođeš do 20. kata, pa onda opet staviš neko temelje.
When the apostles passed from the scene
Kada su apostoli završili sa svojom službom
as the foundation, which means they will pass from the scene,
kao temelj, i to ujedno i znači da će kad-tad otići,
and when the original apostles die, they're not replaced.
i kad su 12-torica pomrla, nisu došli novi koji su ih zamijenili.
Acts chapter 12,
Djela 12.
not the replacement of Judas in the beginning of Acts. I'm talking about when after there's 12 again. This is the first apostle to die. Judas wasn't a real apostle, so he's replaced in the early Acts.
Juda je umro, ali on nije bio pravi apostol, od njega nećemo računati, a ovdje je prvi apostol koji je umro.
In Acts 12, here the king puts his hand on James, the apostle, the brother of John, and puts him to death.
12.
Acts 12, 1 and 2.
U ono vrijeme kralj Herod podiže ruke da zlostavi neke iz crkve i mačem pogubi Jakova, brata Ivana.
They're not replaced. He's not replaced.
I ne dolazi još jedan na Jakovljevo mjesto.
And neither of any of the other 12 apostles are replaced anywhere in the New Testament.
I nigdje u Novom Zavjetu ne čitamo da je neki drugi čovjek zamijenio nekog od apostola.
I'm not including Judas, as I said. He was replaced because he was an apostate. He wasn't
I
true.
ne uključujem Judu zato što on nije bio apostol, stoga je morao biti zamijenjen.
But after that, they're not replaced.
A nakon toga nisu više
The Catholic tradition of apostolic, what's the word I'm looking for? Passing it on. They have a special word for that. Succession. Thank you. Thank you.
Dakle, apostolska sukcesija koju rimokatolička crkva vjeruje nema
Is not in the
u Novom
Bible.
Zavjetu. Nije u Bibliji.
So here's the thinking. Point number 3 is based on not everybody does miracles because they're a sign of Jesus or the apostles.
Dakle, treći ne znam kaj to sad govorimo argumentima, kaj poanta je
Sure. Point number 3 is miracles have a purpose.
Dakle, čudesa imaju svrhu
And one of their main purposes
i glavna temeljna svrha je
is to confirm Jesus as Messiah,
potvrditi Isusa za Mesiju
confirm the apostles as apostles.
i potvrditi apostole kao apostole.
Second part of point 3
Drugi dio trećeg argumenta
is apostles are foundational
jest da su apostoli temeljni
and are not continuous to today.
i nisu, dakle oni su temeljni, ali nisu nastavljeni danas. Nemaju nastavak.
Kako kad u Hrvatskoj imaju Šička čovjek?
On je nada apostol.
On je nada.
He's referring to one because he said nada.
Nada.
It's a super apostle, yeah. And then I tried to prove that by showing when the first apostle after the 12 were set in chapter 12 of Acts dies, he's not replaced, neither is it anywhere else in the
I
New Testament.
pokazao sam vam da u djelima 12 kad je Jakov umro nije došao neki drugi koji je zamijenio Jakova.
Now, I hope you're able to catch those details in point 3, but I think it's very significant, this point.
Nadam se da ste uhvatili ono što je trebalo biti uhvaćeno u ovom trećoj točci.
Miracles aren't willy-nilly to whoever for whatever,
Dakle,
but had a purpose limited to the apostles.
ne može čudesa učiniti svatko kad hoće, kad mu se prosti, gdje ga hoće, nego su limitirana sa svrhom i to na apostolima.
Later on, after the time of, well, let's go to point number 4.
Idemo na četvrtu poantu, četvrti zaključak.
In James, it teaches that instead of calling, when you're sick, instead of calling for the person with the gift of healing,
Jakov kaže da kad ste bolesni, umjesto da zovete čudotvorca ili izliječitelja,
call the elders of your church to pray over you.
zovite starješine koji će se moliti nad vama.
And I think this is the continuation of what we should be doing.
I mislim da je to nastavak onoga što mi trebamo činiti.
Instead of looking for a healing person who has the gift of healing,
Umjesto da tražimo čudotvorca koji može izliječiti nekoga,
we look to God who through prayer may choose to heal us.
mi se kroz molitvu obraćamo Bogu koji nas može izliječiti.
I'm referring to James 5, verses 14, 15, and
Pozvao sam se na Jakov 5, verses 3, 14.
5, 14, 15.
5, 14 do 15.
Now, I've tried to summarize some key thoughts
Probao sam sažeti sve ovo.
in a half hour or 45 minutes. I don't know how long I talk.
30, 35 minuta, ne znam koliko sam dugo govorio.
Of course, there's many other arguments for and against from each side, but I think these are the most crucial ones.
Naravno da ima još puno više argumenta, ali mislim da su ovi najvažniji od krucijalne i izuzetne važnosti.
If you're interested in more, there's different books in English, and I don't know about Croatian, you might know. That might be helpful, but this is a summary to answer the question, do people have the gift of healing today?
Dakle, ima drugih dobrih knjiga na engleskom, pa vjerojatno nekih na hrvatskom, koje se bave tom problematikom, jesu li darovi za danas. Znam da je TBA izdala karizmatski pokret zbilja ili zbrka, bit će uskoro štampan.
Charismatic.
Već ima.
Is that in Ukraine?
It's in Croatian, but they republished it because we saw
That book, The Charismatic Chaos,
Dakle, ta knjiga, karizmatski pokret zbilja ili zbrka,
I really recommend that. Super helpful for me
vam
in figuring this out.
preporučujem jer je bila veoma velike pomoći meni kad sam imao zbunjolu u glavi.
Because I don't want to be standing on the sideline if this is God doing these.
Jer ne želim smetati Bogu i stajati Bogu na putu, ako on doista čini ta čudesa.
If that's real, then I want to get it right and join that.
Ako je to točno, ako je tome tako, ja se želim njima priključiti.
But if they're mistaken in some important ways, I don't want to be joining mistakes and wasting time and displeasing the Lord.
Ali, ako oni čine veliku grešku, ne želim se uključiti k njima i činiti tu istu grešku i na taj način ne ugađati Bogu.
So I hope this addendum to the miracles of Jesus about are there miracle healings today was hopefully gave it a little bit more clarity.
I nadam se da ovaj jedan pomoćni dio, addendum kojeg ste dobili, će vam pomoći u shvaćanju imali čudesa danas ili izliječitelja.
So, if on the final exam,
Dakle, ako na završnom ispitu
I were to say,
bih vam rekao,
true or false,
točno ili netočno,
God does not heal today.
Bog danas ne izliječuje. Je li to točno ili netočno?
Ni točno, because he does heal today.
Jer on liječi danas.
Through prayer, not through a healer.
Kroz molitvu, ne kroz...
Yes. Definitely. Most of all, he does that. Yeah. Maybe a doctor, maybe, yeah, through other things that he's providentially putting together. Very much. Yeah, that.
И kroz providence.
We talked about that earlier. That's how God usually works, through his providence.
Ranije govorili, to je način na koji Bog tipično djeluje.
Now I want to speak a little bit about the, let's see here, 1 second, we did that already. The purpose of his miracles, we've talked about some of this, but I want to summarize it with a few points, 3 points here.
Dakle, evo nekoliko svrha čudesa Isusovih.
So we are going to put on one piece of paper 3 purposes.
Dakle, evo tri svrhe.
To show he's Messiah.
Pod broj 1 pokazuju da Isus jest Mesija.
Number 2,
Broj 2
to force a decision about who Jesus is.
prisiliti osobu na odgovor tko je Isus. Ili na odluku po pitanju toga. Prisiliti osobu na odgovor tko je Isus.
It's a I think it's a demon.
His name is Siri.
His name is Siri. Would you heal Siri? I can try. Yeah. So this applies even to us. This point number 2 here.
Dakle, ovaj broj 2 se itekako odnosi na nas danas.
Who do you say Jesus is one of the most important questions that anyone can answer.
To vi kažete tko je Isus. To je najvažnije pitanje na koje možete dati najvažniji odgovor.
We hear about his miracles, and that should encourage our faith that he is the Messiah.
Slušamo o njegovim čudesima, čitamo o njegovim čudesima i to nas mora prisiliti da damo odgovor na pitanje tko je Isus.
And hopefully unbelievers, as they would hear us talk about who Jesus is and what he did, this would push them to a decision that he really is God. He really is who the Bible says he
Kada
is.
govorimo našim prijateljima i nevjernicima o tome što je sve Isus učinio, nadamo se da će upravo ta čudesa ih prisiliti da daju odgovor tko je Isus za njih.
Miracles are signs pointing to him as
Čudesa su znakovi, pokazatelji koji pokazuju prema Isusu.
but not everyone responds correctly.
Nisu svi odgovorili točno na te pokazatelje.
The Pharisees are an example of, they saw Jesus do a miracle and they said, that's the devil.
Farizeji su zoran primjer. Oni su vidjeli što Isus čini, ali njihov odgovor je bio krivi. On to čini pod utjecajem Belzebula.
Was another name for,
I to je drugo ime
basically say.
za Sotonu.
And, very interestingly to me,
I meni jako zanimljivo,
we look briefly at Luke chapter 16,
Luka 16,
also emphasizes the point that miracles are not always going to make somebody believe.
Luka 16 također naglašava da neće čudesa uvijek nekoga učiniti vjernikom.
Miracles are important and they can be a sign, and they should be a sign that Jesus is Messiah.
Čudesa su važne i ona pokazuju na to da je Isus Mesija,
But it doesn't force people to believe.
ali ne tjeraju, ne sile osobu da uzvjeruje.
In Luke 16:19 and following,
Luka 16:19 pa nadalje,
Jesus tells the story of the rich man and Lazarus.
Isus govori o bogatašu i Lazaru.
Lazarus is rich.
Lazar,
The rich man is rich and Lazarus is poor. They
bogataš
both die.
bogat, Lazar je siromašan, obojica umiru.
Things are completely switched in the afterlife compared to
I
during life.
u загробnom životu sve je preokrenuto u odnosu sa ovozemaljskim životom.
Lazarus goes to Abraham's bosom, and the rich man goes to Hades, the place of
Lazar
the
ide u
dead.
Abrahamovo krilo, a ovaj bogataš odlazi u Had.
The rich man, in verse 27,
U 26. stihu bogataš
begs Abraham and says, I beg you, Father, send someone to my father's house. I have 5 brothers there.
u 27. U 27. 26.
You said, repeat the verse, where it is?
Yeah, in verse 27, I beg you, Father, that you would send him to my father's
Oče, da
house.
ga pošalješ u kuću oca mojega.
Verse 28, I got 5 brothers.
Da, ima petoricu braća,
He doesn't want his 5 brothers to go to the same bad place
ne
of
želi
torment.
da petorica njegove braće odu u Had.
Here's an interesting answer from Abraham.
Evo zanimljiv odgovor i to od Abrahama.
They have Moses and the prophets, let them listen to them.
Imaju Mojsija i proroke, neka njih posluhu.
Listen to the Bible, in other words.
Drugim riječima, pa slušajte Bibliju.
Richmond says, no, no, Father Abraham.
Bogataš reče, ne ođe Abraham,
Someone goes to them from the dead, then they will repent.
nego dođe li tko od mrtvih njima pokajat će se.
That's the key. Let's give them a miracle, somebody from the dead.
To je ključ, to će promijeniti sve. Pošaljimo nekoga od mrtvih.
Verse 31, go ahead and read that.
31. stih kaže, a Abraham mu reče, ako ne slušaju Mojsija i proroke, neće se uvjeriti ni da tko od mrtvih uskrsne.
That's powerful.
Ovo je snaga.
Because sometimes we think if I could just show them a miracle, they would really believe.
Jer to nekad razmišljam, ako bi barem mogao neko čudo izvesti, uzeti iz džepa, oni će svi uzvjerovati.
But what they really need is to hear a message from the Word of God.
Ali ono što zapravo trebaju čuti poruku evanđelja od Boga.
They don't listen to Moses, the prophets, basically, the Bible of that time. Then they're not going to be persuaded if someone rises from the
Ako
dead.
ne slušaju Mojsija i proroke, odnosno Bibliju koja je zapisana do tada, neće slušati ni ako netko ustane iz mrtvih.
Miracles have their place.
Čudesa imaju svoje mjesto.
The Gospel of John says the miracles are to show that Jesus is God.
Evanđelja, Ivan kaže da su ona pokazatelj da je Isus Mesija.
But they do not, back to our point here finally, force a decision regarding who Jesus is. Miracles don't force people.
Ali na kraju one ipak ne forsiraju ljude da odgovore, da počnu slijediti Isus.
And this Luke 16:30 and 31 show us that the primary place is the Scriptures, what people need to hear.
Dakle, Luka 16:30 i 31 nam kaže da primarno ljudi moraju znati što kaže Biblija.
The third purpose of Jesus' miracles
Treća svrha Isusovih čudesa je
is to show His compassion and His love.
da ona pokazuju Božju solidarnost i ljubav.
And the Scriptures often talk about Jesus feeling compassion.
Suosjećanje i čitamo kroz evanđelje da je Isus imao suosjećanje prema ljudima.
When Jesus healed people, He was showing them God's love and care and concern.
Kada je Isus izlječivao ljude, činio čudesa, pokazao je svoju brigu prema njima, ljubav prema njima i suosjećanje koje ima prema njima.
They couldn't see, and now they could.
Nisu mogli vidjeti, sada vide.
They couldn't walk, and now they could walk.
Nisu mogli hodati, sada hode.
God, through Jesus, loved them, and He showed them that.
Bog po Isusu ih ljubi i to im pokazuje.
Yes, there's a deeper meaning. Jesus is Messiah. Believe in Him.
Da, postoji dublje značenje. Isus je Mesija, vjerujte u njega.
But it also says, I love you.
Ali istovremeno kaže, ja te ljubim.
I care about your infirmities, your difficulties, your physical problems.
Ja brinem o tebi, suosjećam s tobom, tvojim problemima, tvojim brigama.
I mean, some of these people were demon possessed, and he cast out those demons. Talk about freedom. Wow.
Neki od ovih ljudi su bili opsjednuti, hvala. I oni su dali, ja stvarno brinem za vas. Evo slobode.
Now, I've already said I don't believe that the gift of healing is a gift that continues. That was not a permanent spiritual gift, but one for the title of the apostles.
I kao što sam rekao, dar izlječenja nije nešto što se prenijelo do nas danas, nego je to dar koji je imao Gospodin Isus i apostoli.
But we can still show God's compassion through our other gifts that God has given us.
Ali Bog nam je dao druge darove po kojima možemo mi pokazivati suosjećanje prema drugim ljudima.
Sometimes Jesus would heal people who had leprosy with a touch.
Ponekad Isus je liječio ljude koji imaju gubu dodjera.
In Matthew 8, 2-3,
Matej 8, 2-3,
Jesus does that very thing.
Isus upravo to čini.
Go ahead and read.
Kad gle dođe neki gubavac, te mu se klanjaše govoreći Gospodine.
Stop right there for a second. My understanding is that in that time period, if you were a leper, you were supposed to cry out and say, leper, and they were supposed to stay away from you. I forget how many cubits or meters it was supposed to be, but not get close to you.
Dakle, koliko ja razumijem, gubavac je trebao vikati da je gubavac i trebao je biti po strani ne znam koliko metara od drugih ljudi.
So most people at that time would never do anything other than, if they had the power to heal, to just do long distance. Okay, you ask for healing, you stay there like you're supposed to.
Znači, ako bi netko imao nekakav dar izlječenja, treba izlječiti gubavca, on mu rekao ti tam budi tam kod Davida Hitena.
And I'll give the word, you're healed.
Ja ću ti reći ti si izliječen.
And Jesus healed long distance, remotely.
I Isus uistinu jeste izlječivao i na velike distance.
So he doesn't have to get close to this
Dakle,
guy.
ne mora doći blizu ovog gubavca.
I mean, he could get sick.
Čak Isus bi mogao...
He could get leprosy.
Mogao bi dobiti gubu.
What do you do getting close to this guy?
Što radiš kad se približavaš tamo?
But in verse 3, that's exactly what he does.
Ali u 3. stihu zapravo to čini.
Jesus stretches out his hand
Isus pruži ruku i dotače ga se.
and he touched it.
I dotače ga se.
He touched it.
I dotače ga se.
This guy might not have been touched, or gal, for weeks, months, possibly even
Ovaj
years.
gubavac možda nije osjetio dodir danima, mjesecima, godinama, satima.
He could have just said the rest of verse 3, and I'm willing to be cleansed.
Mogao je samo reći hoću, očisti se.
But he adds the touch,
Ali kaže i dotače ga se.
reaches out and touches him.
Dakle, pruža ruku prema njemu i dotače ga se.
So use your spiritual gift in a way that you reach out and touch people.
Koristite svoje duhovne darove kako biste pružili svoje ruke i dotakli.
Maybe it's serving somebody.
Možda je to služiti nekom.
Maybe it's helping someone.
Možda je to pomagati nekom.
Maybe it's encouraging them.
Možda je to ohrabrivati nekom.
Maybe it's even giving them a rebuke
Možda je to ukoriti nekom.
or teaching them.
Ili poučiti nekom.
But you can reach out and be God's hands and feet by using your spiritual gift
Ali
to show compassion.
vi možete i morate pružiti svoje
And love.
ruke i pokazati suosjećanje prema ljudima koji su u potrebi i pokazati im ljubav.
And maybe every once in a while that actually means to touch someone.
I s vremena na vrijeme taj dodir će imati svoje znanje.
The old ladies, the babushkas in our church,
Babuške u njihovoj crkvi ili mamice u Ljubljini,
they love to find me and I like to look out for them after church and sometimes go over and give them a hug.
znači ponekad nakon crkve on voli otići i zagrliti ih.
Sometimes babushka Christina will come over, say brusichka. I'm praying for you. How are you? Grab her hands. Thank you for praying for me, Babushka Kristina. Give her a hug. Old people love that. We can show compassion and love. Sometimes just looking somebody in the eye and really listening. We're so busy. Even with our own family sometimes. To really show compassion and love by truly just listening, being all there. We don't have the gift of miracles, but we can apply this principle of showing compassion and love with the gift that God has given us. And sometimes it even involves what Jesus did, a touch. We'd be careful with, the young guys with the young ladies, or even the older guys with the young ladies. I'm not talking about that. It's something different. I was debating whether to add that, I thought, but just in case. And the Bible even talks about that, I think it's 1 Timothy chapter 5. Paul says, with all purity, with the younger women, that kind of thing. That's obvious. I hope and I think we understand. But there's certain people where, especially I think old people, like I said, this can be really I'm not sure what's so funny about that one. Okay, that ends the purpose of Jesus' miracles and an application to us.
Dakle, time smo došli do kraja kako se svrha Isusovih čudesa i kako se to primjenjuje na nas.
And I want to start to head to the end of this section about the miracles.
I želim započeti sam zaključak, završetak čudesa Isusovih.
By looking at the character of Jesus seen in his miracles.
Tako da pogledamo gospodinov karakter u tim čudesima.
And we have three columns here. The first one, who is Jesus?
Dakle, imamo tri stupca ovdje. Prvi je tko je Isus.
And we see through his miracles that he's God.
I kroz čudesa vidimo Isus jest Bog.
He is the one, and it's in the first box there, who can calm the sea.
On je onaj koji može stišavati more.
And the miracle is him stilling the sea.
Dakle, pitanje je tko može stišati, tko može smiriti more. I onda vidimo Isusa kako stišava, odnosno smiruje more. U Mateju 8:23 do 27.
Now that's the first time he stills the sea.
To je prvi put kada stišava more.
In Matthew, same author, chapter 14, he stills the sea a second time.
U Mateju 14 stišava more drugi put.
That's the one where Peter walks on the water.
To je ono kada je Petar hodao po vodi.
But I just picked one of them.
Ali ja sam izabrao samo jednu.
But in this passage,
Ali u ovom odlomku
they say,
oni kažu,
Matthew 8:27,
Matej 8,
they were marveling, saying,
kad Isus odlazi na njih,
what kind of man is this? Matthew 8:27, that can even still the winds in the sea, or the winds in the sea obey him. Yes.
8:27 kaže, a ljudi se začudiše govoreći, tko je ovaj da mi se i vjetri i more uporavaju.
And the answer is,
Odgovor je,
normal people don't stop to see.
obični ljudi tipično ne zaustavljaju, stišavaju more.
But in Psalm 65,
Ali u Psalmu 65,
verse 7,
stih 7,
it says that God stills the roaring waves.
kaže da Bog usišava huku mora, huku valova i huku naroda.
Psalm 65:7.
Psalm 65:7.
So who is Jesus?
Ko je Isus?
He's God,
On je Bog.
the one who can still see.
Onaj koji može smiriti more.
And sometimes the sea that needs stilling is the one that's churning in our own heart or mind.
I ponekad more koje treba smirenje je ono koje se nalazi u našim umovima i srcima.
It's happened to me many times during this war in Ukraine.
Meni se to često događa, posebno sada u vremenu rata u Ukrajini.
Lord, I'm stirred up. I need your help. I need your peace. And I'm not doing too well.
Ja trebam tvoj mir, ja trebam tvoje stišavanje mora koje se nalazi u meni.
We also see Jesus forgives sins. Who is Jesus? He's the sin forgiver.
Ono što još vidimo je da Isus oprašta grijeh. On može opraštati grijeh.
We see this quotation when he heals the paralytic
To vidimo kada je izliječio uzetog.
in Luke chapter 5, verses 20 to 25.
20 do 25.
And in that passage it says, the Son of Man has authority to forgive sin.
I u tom odlomku kaže da sin čovječi ima vlast opraštati grijeh.
Well, even the religious leaders were offended, or at least they knew that only God forgives sin. They decided Jesus wasn't God, so this is blasphemy, this is a terrible thing that he did.
Iako nisu htjeli prepoznati da je Isus Bog, oni su smatrali da je to bogohuljenje, te su odlučili biti njegovim neprijateljima.
Jesus is the one who can satisfy, because he is the bread of life.
Isus može dati istinsko zadovoljstvo, jer je on kruh života.
John 6:35.
Ivan 6:35.
He shows that he is our satisfaction
On pokazuje da je on naše zadovoljstvo,
as he fed and satisfied physical hunger
tako
of
što
5,000.
fizički hrani 5.000 ljudi.
And in these verses, he's telling them, you've got to eat me, ingest me, take me, I need to be your all, and I'm going to satisfy. And he's using the physical to show the spiritual.
I ovim stihovima Ivan 6:5 do 14 on kaže da oni njega moraju konzumirati, moraju ga žvakati, moraju ga, on sav mora biti u njima. Moraju ga proživati.
And lastly, he's the resurrection and the life.
I posljednje, Isus jest uskrsnuće i život.
We see that in John 11:25. I am the resurrection and the life.
U Ivanu 11:25 ja sam uskrsnuće i život.
He who believes in me will live, even if he dies.
Onaj koji vjeruje u mene i ako umre i život će.
I got to preach that when my mom's coffin was next to the grave and was about to be put in the dirt.
Imao sam privilegiju propovijedati upravo o tome na sprovodu svoje majke kada je njezin lijes trebao biti stavljen u zemlju.
She believed that,
Ona je to
and I believed that.
Ja sam to vjerovao.
And I told everybody who was there, my mom, Sue Jane, would tell you today This is the exact truth. It's real. She's experiencing it.
I svima sam rekao, moja majka bi vam danas rekla da je ovo istina i da ona to očekuje.
So this is a chart that summarizes some of the character of who Jesus is and his miracles. You could probably add more.
Dakle, ovo su samo neka čudesa koja karakteriziraju Isusa i govore tko on uistinu jest, ali možete dodati još mnogo drugih.
But if you're stuck tomorrow at what to pray and thank God for, you could even just pray through these, and I think that would be a blessing.
Ali ako, na primjer, sutra nećete znati o čemu moliti, možete pogledati ovu tablicu, imate što zamoliti.
I think it would be encouraging.
I mislim da će vam to biti dobro.
Okay, let's take our 10-minute break. And after our break, we will start to look at the teachings of Jesus.
Ćemo govoriti o učenjima Isusa Krista.
The content, the form,
Sadržaj i forma njegovih.
and how can we learn to better teach if we have that gift by looking at Jesus.
I kako mi možemo bolje učiti, poučavati ako imamo taj dar, dok gledamo na Krista.